Everyone, it's 11:30. I'm going to call the meeting to order for the Board of Water and Wastewater Commissioners at the Harwich Water Department at 196 Chatham Road, Harwich, Mass. Wednesday, September 14th, 2022. Call the meeting to order. No executive session. Any public comments, announcements? Consent agenda. The minutes for June 30th.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we adopt the minutes of June 30th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? I'll take a roll call vote, seeing that Judith is on the phone. Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Ms. Donahue?
Aye.
Mr. Goff?
Aye.
Miss Judith Underwood?
Aye.
And it's not myself, thank you. All right, next up is the abatements for 6 Summer Lane. So Wesley, just a quick question about that. So in the write-up, it says that, it says, my wife noticed a leak in the yard. And then in the other write-up, it says that her husband drove to the Cape. So are you 6 Summer?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, so my wife was down here, I live in Canton, or we live in Canton.
Okay.
And she noticed that near the pit, it started the ground was getting real wet and everything. And so I told her to try to she couldn't get the cap off, but it was full of water. We have a outdoor shower right there.
Okay.
And there wasn't some kind of leak or something, but so she tells me it was on a Sunday, so she said she called the town, she called the water department, then she called me. I drove down because I didn't know what was going on.
Okay, so your wife was here, you weren't here.
Correct.
So she saw it, then you drove down.
Yeah, so I drove down and, yeah, it must have been leaking or something because it was full of water and it completely caved in.
So the meter was leaking?
Yes.
On the outside?
It's in a pit.
It's in a pit, okay.
Yeah.
So do we have a phone call or a message at the department, Dan? Do we have to, even if it's a Sunday and they call, someone's gonna get that call?
Yeah, there's an auto prompt to go to.
She called the town and then she called the water department. Just so you know, I was like, well, why didn't you, we didn't know.
Yeah.
So the announcement or your message in reference to emergencies is at like the end of a 30-second. So
Okay.
she called and listened to it, and we're closed today. Then she called, I think she called the town hall first and then the water department. So, dial extension this, dial extension that. I called it afterwards, and after the 30-second, in case of an emergency,
Okay.
she apparently didn't listen to the whole thing. She was kind of in panic mode to some extent.
Okay.
That's why I drove it down. So I shut the water off, the whole thing caved in,
Okay.
and I dug it all out, and there was just dirt everywhere. So I unhooked it, and I just basically sprayed it down, and because it looked like it was all in the threads, everything, and hooked it back up.
Okay. So the meter needed to be replaced? Was the meter damaged?
This was for the tamper fee.
Well, it's for both, because I have another issue as well.
There's usage and then tamper fee associated with it. So 1,000 of the 14.
I see the 1,000 for the fine,
And the meter was 458.
and the meter was 458.
So when we have an situation like this, the meters are replaced out.
Okay. So the request for the abatement is for the tampering and the new meter.
Correct.
So do we know what happened with the meter?
After
The
it
damaged
was,
meter?
after it was taken out?
Yeah.
It's probably on the shelf in the garage. I mean, we usually keep them for.
Right, so I guess,
time.
so when we went there, the meter was leaking.
I think by the time we got there, it had already been stopped and.
The waters were already shut off at that point.
No, because this happened months later. You guys, I guess there was a negative flow alert or something. I put it backwards apparently.
Okay.
So when I dug the hole out, and I have some pictures and stuff, it's probably the cleanest pit down there. I made sure that I took it all apart, cleaned it off, used some plumber's tape, put it back on there, and stopped the leak. So I thought, it was a done deal.
Well, do you have anything you want to add to that? I mean, what did you see? Did you see anything as far as water usage?
Right, when we read for billing, I was alerted that the meter was backwards.
Okay.
And that's how we came to know.
So where was the water coming from?
It had been leaking.
Why did you take the meter out completely? Which side was it on, the in?
I don't know, the pit caved in. It was literally, when I went down there, it was like, you know, the pit's this deep.
Yeah.
It was probably this deep full of, you know, dirt. And
Right.
The thing completely caved in.
But-
So I don't know what side was leaking. I mean, by the time I got it out of there, it was just a filter.
Why'd you take the meter out?
Just because there was just sand everywhere, all on the threads. You know, I thought I was doing the right thing, because I cleaned it out, and I actually have some pictures. You know, I cleaned it out, I put crushed stone on the bottom of it, I just made it, you know, to try to make it so.
Is it seasonal? This is seasonal house?
Seasonal, yeah.
What was the date that this happened, sir?
The date that the cave-in,
Well, that you did this driving from Canton?
I'm just being honest with you, I don't know.
Well, I mean, was it June, July, or August, or May?
It was June when I got the call from you guys, so I assume it was maybe, I would guess, shortly before there, whenever you guys read it.
So I was wondering when you got the call from your wife.
Mhm. Oh, well, that day, the day that
And what day was that?
I don't know, but like I
Okay.
said, we got the call in June, I got the call from you folks in June, so I assume it was,
Okay, because this says in March, there was a major reverse flow event. So that's when it was first discovered as being backwards?
That would have been our April billing period.
Right. I'm having trouble following the
Yeah, me
timeline
too.
of this.
So March, so the billing was in April, so it had to have been back in March that it was turned around.
That's how we became aware of the whole situation when it showed up as going backwards.
And do we have any data as far as water usage from that period going forward? Or because it was backwards, it's not reading?
Well, it was reading backwards,
Right.
so we just have to flip the usage around in order to issue the bill. And then we go out and get rid of it.
All right, so did you go back and fill that out?
Yes,
Was-
because then, after I make the adjustment, we get the meter out there so it doesn't happen again for the
Right.
next July billing.
Right.
So there's a whole new meter in
Do you know what the water usage was, what the bill was for the water usage?
I think it might
Is
be
it
in your packet.
14,000 gallons, 13,000? Because it read 92 in March, and then it was read at 88 in June.
Like a one sheet here says 13,000 for usage, but on the other one,
On this one, I don't like how Munis prints reports. If you look at the dates, for whatever reason, that whenever you export the account notes, the first usage stuff on the bottom is from like 2005.
yeah.
So the second page has the most up-to-date,
All right.
or the current reads.
So the leak was on the house side of the meter, which would be after the town?
I don't know. The meter itself, one end of the
Do
other.
you have a plumber come in and who drains your house? Was it seasonally, do we take it out? No, we leave it in?
No, I have Jason Rosa, you must know, he's a local guy.
Well, yeah, okay, but what I'm saying is, was it left off and was it blown back? You know, he must
Yeah.
disconnect the line on
Yeah, I don't
on
think
the
he
house
disconnects
side?
it, I think he just, like,
Undoes it?
meter
Undoes it?
And loosens it up or something, I've seen him do it before, yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't, so the leak was from, no, it wasn't put back together, right? On the house side of the meter?
No,
That was the cause of the
because
leak.
it wasn't right after any service was done. It was, you know, it had been fine, and then just out of the blue, she called me and said, there's water, it's not.
Well, I know, it's probably gonna take a while to, you know, what's the dates from,
Well, it has to go back to March,
right?
because if the bill was April, and the April billing is the previous 3 months.
So what I'm saying is somebody
March.
somebody disconnected it wasn't connected right. Probably was a washer and it's missing a washer or something, that's not the town's fault for that. You know?
For this turn on, turn off.
Well, I'm just saying, for the leak,
Right.
right?
So when it was, so when it was seasonally opened or shut, turned on or turned off,
Which we didn't have, we didn't touch it, because
Right.
it's in a pit, they leave the meter in, we don't
Right.
go there,
right.
so.
All right, so we're looking at an abatement for $14.85 for the $1,000 fine and the $458 for the meter. Judith, are you still with us?
I am, can you hear me?
Yep, okay, thank you. I just want
Yeah.
to make sure you're still there. Do you have any comments or questions?
So I just want to make sure I understand correct. So just from what John remarks, is it something that might have happened when the plumber put things in or closed down the house or opened the house?
It sounds like that.
Yeah.
And then I just wanted to ask respectfully to the gentleman, is he a plumber as well, or is do you work in a building or something?
No, I'm not, but that house has been, you know, gets seasonalized, or however you wanna call it, for the last 30 years. I mean, it's,
By a
I guess we
plumbing
could blame
company? I mean,
someone, but
by an outside contractor, or do you do it yourself?
the, I had an outside contractor,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like you might want to have a conversation with him, I think, but my understanding.
Well, we, the town, don't do the seasonal turn-on, turn-off.
When it was hooked back up, like I said, I've been doing this for a long time. This is, I know this house really, really well. It wasn't leaking,
Doing what you've been doing what a long time?
just seasonal, you know, turn the house on and off.
Okay.
And it wasn't leaking. I guess we're gonna point the finger at someone, that's fine, but it wasn't leaking.
What was the date of that, when it was?
I honestly don't know. I'm just, you know, so you could fall within like a 60-day window. I really don't know.
See, it's not helpful to us, though, if we don't know, you know, what happened when.
I hear you. I
Yeah.
just don't want to, I'm not gonna make up dates.
No, I thought you might have them in a calendar.
No.
All right, Dan, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I mean, I guess, just with respect to the fine, you know, obviously it's the board's discretion. It doesn't appear that there was any malicious intent,
Right.
you know.
Oh, no,
You know,
yeah.
But other than that, I don't have anything to add.
And the cost of the meter is $458, so $1,000 for the fine, and the meter's $458. The new meter.
I'm reading it right, 408, and then there was another, the labor.
458 or 6.
Yes.
Is there a motion to be made? Well, I mean, I agree. I don't think there's any malicious active to the tampering of the meter. Do we want to waive the $1,000 fine and keep the $458 charge for the meter?
I would go with that, Mr. Chairman. The fact that there was no malicious intent, and it was Sunday, but somehow, you know, we have to, I mean, if it was an electric meter, would you have taken that off the wall?
No, I hear you.
No.
It's just, I learned my lesson. If that's what you, yeah, God,
I just, you know, normally I would just say, it's too bad, $1,000 fine, $458, no discussion, it's over. You're not supposed to touch the meter, you know, so on down the line. But, again, you weren't trying to beat us. And then whatever the water fees, or whatever the water use, you know, would be paid also.
Right. This is just a payment for,
Okay, so the water bill's gonna
the
stay.
water bill's staying.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
I'm just waiving the $1,000
It's fine.
tampering fine. That's what
I just don't want anybody to think we're foregoing that $1,000
Right.
fine,
Right.
you know.
Right, no, I mean, yeah.
Well, he didn't know the rules and the regs on that, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion to waive the $1,000, to abate the $1,000 fine and keep the bill at $458 for the meter.
Can I add one more thing to this? And I appreciate that. So I got the bill for the meter of a date, due date of August 22nd.
Okay.
Okay. So I happened to be down on the Cape, so I went in there and looked, and it was, I said, it looks like, so I called the office and said, it looks like the same meter. I mean, it really, like I said, I've been looking at this meter for 20 years now. No, it's not. I pulled the work order, it is a new meter. It's all water running great, everything's running great. I'm like, oh geez, there's a sticker on it, maybe they reused the old sticker. I'm like, looks like the same meter, so I'm thinking maybe whatever the case is. So I took a picture of it. It's my old meter turning around. This is on August 22nd. A week later, I have a new meter. So it just seems like I don't know, I'm not accusing anyone of anything. It's just very, when I called and I was assured it was a new meter, I look and it's the same meter and it's turned around.
Can I see those pictures?
So that's on August 22nd, and then lo and behold, I look in there and there's a new meter. So obviously the old meter had been working, that it got turned around, it was, you know, the water was being calculated accurately. And apparently because I called, and I'm not trying to speculate, I'm really not. It's just, I'm just like, well, what's going on here? They turned it around, it's running great, and now because I call, I get a new meter and I'm still subject to a $500 charge.
We had a new technician, and he wasn't aware that when a meter is tampered with, it's to be replaced. When I became aware that, by looking at the old work order, he was supposed to change it out, but because he was new, he wasn't aware of that.
Okay.
So we sent him back with a new meter.
Okay. That's cool. Anyone look at these pictures?
No,
Do you want to look at the pictures?
You know,
Good?
if we keep talking about it, it's gonna be
Yeah.
$1,500.
All right, so the motion I made is $1,000 abatement, and the charge is $458. Is there a second?
second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? I'm going to take a roll call vote. Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Ms. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Goff?
Yes.
Judith?
Yes,
And it's yes
Yes.
myself. So it's $1,000 waived and the $458 for the meter. All right, going on to water restrictions. Dan?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so included in the packet, I did, was a,
Dan, I'm sorry, hold on one second. So are you here for public comment? Because you came in late. Okay,
Tim Gallagher.
nice to meet you, Mr. Gallagher. I just want to make sure if you had something you wanted to say, because you came in a little late, so.
I'm here to observe, I'm interested in
Okay.
the issue that you guys are facing.
All right, I just wanted to give
support
you, well, thank you.
Okay?
I just wanted to give you the opportunity to speak.
As I'm gathering information, I want to get whatever I can. I will send you some more stuff in the emails
All right,
through the next couple
All
of
right.
weeks or whatever. I hope helpful.
all right, go ahead, Dan.
all right, so, as I was saying, there was a graphic in the packet with just an update from the state as to the status of restrictions statewide. They did just come out with the updated drought declaration, I think it was yesterday, the day before, and kept us at a level 3. But just, I think this is the first meeting that we've had since we have kind of had to revamp how we're going about the
Right.
enforcement and finding. So just to kind of summarize findings on all of that. So when we started out with the water restrictions, we had implemented on the 1st with enforcement to begin on the 8th. When we set out, we were enforcing consistent with the department's rules and regulations, which has a first offense being written warning, second offense being a $100 fine, and third and subsequent would be a $300 fine. So right as we were about to send out kind of the second batch of real fines, if you will, with the, higher dollar value, reached out to legal counsel to just make sure that what we were doing was being done properly, so that if and when we have to pursue this, violators aren't let out on a technicality. So town council reviewed the regulations and the town bylaws and brought it to my attention that there is a conflict between the bylaw and the rules and regs. So the town bylaw is no written warning. First offense is a $50 fine, second offense and every subsequent is a $100 fine. With that, the bylaw requires those fines to be issued through a non-criminal municipal citation. So each report that comes in needs to translate into a paper ticket that goes into the mail to the violator. We provide a copy to the town clerk. From there, the property owner has 21 days to make payment on the non-criminal municipal citation. I went down to the Orleans District Court to talk to the magistrate about, just issuing these fines and what the process was. The woman I spoke with recommended at the end of the 21 days, for those who haven't paid it, we should try to collect again a second time and mail out, a second letter, because the next step is to fill out an application for criminal complaint, which gets submitted to the district court, and a hearing is scheduled within 60 days. So where we are looking at issuing probably over 500 tickets that if people don't want to pay, citations, if they don't, want to pay or contest, that's going to result into potentially 500 individual trips to the courthouse to shake it out. So that's unfortunately the way we have to operate until if and when we can get the bylaw changed. So we have since been operating under that bylaw and been starting to issue fines consistent with that. But that's kind of the...
So if we change the bylaw, does legal have an opinion as to the terminology or to make things easier?
So, and this is part of the discussion I wanted to have today, and I did attend the Charter Bylaw Review Committee meeting that they had last night to just as an introductory conversation as I guess what would I like to see happen? How I think to make this function smoothly and not be an administrative nightmare with ticket writing and tracking and all that stuff, what I would like to see happen is, one, if we can within the bylaw designate the fee structure to be established by the Board of Water Wastewater Commissioners, so that if we need to switch gears, there's non-compliance and we need to make, the fourth offense, turning someone's water off, we can't do that right now. So it would give the board a little bit more flexibility to respond to lack of, adhering to the ban, to amend the fines as needed, and to be able to do it at your discretion. The other thing that I would like to see happen is if we can assess these fines to the water user accounts. So that way we're not issuing tickets to the property owner, to the clerk magistrate at the courthouse, and result in trips to the court. If we could do it through the water account, if it remained unpaid, it would go to lien, like unpaid water bills, and be collected through that way. So it would kind of streamline the development of ticketing and collection, if you will.
All right. Judith. Noreen?
I looked at the bylaws, and I was going to print out some points, but my printer decided not to cooperate this morning. But it's not a simple thing. It's several pages of legalese and chapters, which we'll all have to look at some point. And it's going to be a big project to change them, because it doesn't just involve us, and in terms of enforcement, it involves the Board of Health, police, there's all kinds of information in there. So I think it's going to have to be a project we're going to have to look at to really revamp them. That would be the ideal way. The other thing I was thinking about, Dan, is, this might be kind of crazy, but is there any way to get it out of the criminal court purview? You know what I mean? It's so much easier for us if it stays within the civil court. And while we're asking questions and talking about a new bylaw, why not talk about everything? Because, that alone, and I don't know, it's like, if you call it a restriction, does it have to be criminal? If you call it a fee, does it have to, there's all these crazy things that can happen. So this is really another big project.
Yeah.
And it would probably take at least 2 years. Well, the writing of what we want will take X amount of time, but then we go into May town meeting, the follow-up a year later with a vote, so we might as well take our time and do it right. Unfortunately, staff will have to struggle through with this, version of that, but, so, I mean, I don't know if there's a time when we can meet with council or somebody else, just to find out, what should we be thinking about? Instead of just thinking about, well, our regulations had $100, $300, and this has 50, 100. I mean, that's fine, but I think we should be thinking much broader than that.
And that if I can, so when I did catch Giorgio in passing and did kind of just state what I had said to the board now, that I would like to see this be able to be assessed to the
Right.
water account.
Right.
If it can go to the water account, I think that alleviates the court issue.
Right.
Giorgio did say, in passing, he thinks that may require special legislation, but he wasn't sure.
No.
When I did bring this up to charter bylaw review, they said if it's a bylaw, not in the charter, then that could go into effect July 1. So if we were able to get language developed for May, then effective July 1 next year, we could have a new structure in place.
Yeah.
But and then I guess if it's charter edits that are required, that would take a 2-year
Right.
process. So I'm hoping that we can streamline it, for sure.
And I'll just throw out one other thing. I don't think it really applies to this situation, because we're really trying to get people to cooperate to use less water. We're not really trying to nail these people. But when I was in the electric utility world, we also had a process where, because we certainly had plenty of unpaid accounts, but we had a process where we would evaluate, are we spending more than the fine we collect? And we had a dedicated clerk who knew the court system and went to district court every week and everything, but it was all within the civil, so that helped a lot. But also it would be like, if somebody's got a $50 bill, in this case it would be an electric bill, it's not worth the court process. I mean, I'm just using this as an example. The forms you fill out come to about $35 in the form and the fee and the filing anyway. The person going down there, everything else. But I just throw that out to keep in the back of your mind. I don't know if that would apply in this situation, because we don't really want to be telling our customers that, well, we fine them, but we decided not to bother to collect, while they're all doing the right thing. So I don't know how that would play in, but on the other hand, if we're spending, $100 to collect 50, we do have to think about that too, so.
One other thing that if we're, to consider as we consider changes to the bylaw, if there is a desire to consider including private irrigation wells in the enforcement authority, my understanding is that can be done, but it does require a town bylaw to put into effect.
Can I jump in really quick?
Go ahead, Judith.
I think we should push on both. I think if we can get the bylaws in place for this, get them ramped up and an education outreach program going to kind of push for it to get past the town meeting in May, I think that would be ideal, because it's, bringing in total community commitment to, if you can get it through the town meeting.
Judging by the feedback we're getting, I think there would be public support. I mean, it's...
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
I think we're required to have public hearings for a bylaw change, but I'm not positive.
I'll have to defer to someone more in the know than myself.
Yeah, I like the terminology correct, so my concern, my problem is, regulating someone's private well. It's a private well. Although I would hope that they would, support the water restrictions. I know people aren't, but that is a concern, and I just want to make sure we get that right.
Or if we are going to look at, private wells, it could be contingent upon the declaration level too, where if we're getting to, if it really matters that they stop using irrigation wells, it wouldn't hurt to have language to enable that level of enforcement, but
Does the state have any language as far as private wells?
all the stuff that comes from DEP is just encourage private
Right.
well users,
Right.
encourage, but
So, I mean,
They don't seem to want to touch it. Yeah.
well, I mean, again.
That's where it should happen, right there.
Right, right.
Well, one thing is that since it's going to require for the wells a brand-new bylaw, that's like a separate project, so at least it will keep the confusion out of rewriting our existing bylaws for water restrictions, so.
And just one thing that just popped in my head on timing, if we go down that road, I'm reluctant to say it because I would love to have a new process for next summer if we need to, enforce restrictions, but at some point, we are anticipating a new Water Management Act permit. I know Orleans, who does have a private well bylaw, did that when they got their new Water Management Act permit so that they could sync their bylaws to the new permit restrictions. I don't know that we're going to have that before May, considering they're already out 12 years from when we're supposed to get it. But as far as timing, it may be worth kind of waiting until we get the bylaw, get the new permit so that we can make one bylaw change, but at risk of having to,
Right, but that's on the new wells only, right?
or that's going to impact likely our
Right.
restrictions too.
But I think we should go ahead and, get printouts of the existing bylaws and put it on our agenda every meeting for a few meetings and start to chip away at it, if we're considering May, for at least the old well, not old well, the attached.
Now, what would you recommend?
As far as like a fee structure, or?
No, coming down to, what would it take, you know what I mean, for the amount of water to be so low?
That I don't have off the top of my head right now. I mean, we're in a place now that we just, I think only in the last 20 years have been once, so it's uncharted at this point.
I know, do we know what the water level is in the aquifer?
We're still 3 feet down from where we are historically.
So, just for the people at home, that's a 300-foot aquifer, and it services, what, over 50,000 homes and businesses?
The whole Monomoy lens?
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't know if I can pull those stats from my head.
Well, I read it today, that's why I was just...
Okay, all right.
But it goes from Dennis, Brewster, Harwich, Chatham, Orleans, and part of Yarmouth.
Yeah.
That's what the
Yeah.
lens
Yeah.
covers.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to reiterate for
Yeah.
anybody listening at home, so.
Or 300 million gallons a day, I think passes through the.
I think it was like 600-something million gallons.
It's a big number.
Yeah, it's a lot, so. That's what I'm saying, we're all pulling from the same spot, whether it's a private well or not, so. All right, anything
And
else?
long-term, long-term too, and how quickly it'll happen is still in hot and heated debate, but sea level rise, our freshwater lens sits atop the denser saline water beneath it. So as sea level rises, it's gonna keep, pushing that up, but the salt water is gonna be coming behind it. So,
Right.
I think, and it may not be something we need to enforce in the short term, but if we find ourselves in dire straits, it'd be good to have it on the books.
I think one thing that we should do is that, I think we should talk with DEP. Number one, when they declare the emergency, the whole lens needs to be shut down.
Right.
So when they declare it, it should be a mandate on the state level that we don't even have to think about. You're done.
That's what
Shut
the
it
new
down.
permit is supposed to get to. So,
Yeah.
and that's why you'll see on this map, there's scattered dots of red, orange, and white.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of the Cape communities either have registered wells or are still operating under their Water Management Act permit that expired in 2010.
Yeah.
So because of that, they don't have the permit restrictions that require them to implement water restrictions when a given drought declaration comes.
Yeah.
So that's what DEP's, part of what they're cleaning up with the new permit is so that it's a more standardized, if the well in Brewster that our water system's tied to, so that well is gonna govern, as I understand it, us, Chatham, Brewster, and Dennis. So if that well drops to a specific level, that's gonna trigger pretty much universal restrictions for
The
all
whole
of us.
land.
But that's pending those new permits, which they haven't
Right.
rolled out yet.
Well, just the same, I think DEP needs to be all-inclusive, everybody, every player in the lanes. So you can't just say the municipal shut down, but private wells can keep going. And they should designate the fines and the whole thing.
I agree with you on that. But it's just, when you look at the map, it's so confusing because here we are, like, one's, you know, an emergency, and the other one right next to the town, who's pulling from the same lens, is just a mandatory 1 day or less. So I mean, where's the line? I mean, so it's just
And I guess
confusing. When you, I mean,
the
literally, when you-
reason there may be, and I just, to throw other side of the coin, you know, there could be non-drought reasons that you could or pull or not pull water. So if you have, you know, shallow wells, you're gonna be more susceptible to impacts of drought, where if you're having deep, you know, deep groundwater wells, you're gonna be less susceptible. So there may be instances where a water system needs to, you know, implement a more stringent restriction due to the limitations of their system versus limitations of the aquifer's ability to provide. So just a component.
all right.
Well, and, you know, part of the problem for us is we had 2 wells go south. You know, I think a drop in pressure. So that kind of changed the outlook for us. And then, you know, with the drought coming on, so it just makes things worse. I mean, look at the western states, look at the Boulder Dam, you know, I mean, it's in your face, you know, countrywide.
It's definitely everywhere, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone else have anything else they want to add?
I have another thing I'd like to get the board's input on. So, with enforcing and trying to manage water restrictions, we did do a meter reading on August 1st, I believe it was, and then we did another one on August 30th. So we could quantify how much, you know, validate reports that if someone says, I was not watering, we can look at the water usage.
And that's
say for-
everyone's house?
Yeah, the whole town, definitively, one way or another. So we do still have varying technology in the system with respect to our water meters. Some of the newer ones that we have, the e-coder meters, we can data log and get a history, 90-day history on the meters. So with some of these, we've gone out to data log, and for example, you can see there's just, they're all different, but, so you can peruse, but you can clearly see on some of these that there is obvious irrigation use every other day for a number of these. Now,
Can you just explain one, so, or, I know they're all, oops.
sorry. Yeah, so what you're looking at is a daily record of water consumption for a given property. And these bars are, you know, reflecting the use, so if you're, I think the one that's most obvious is the one that Alan has. Where you
Right.
can see every other day, there's
Yeah.
huge spikes in usage.
So the red means,
Red's a flag for a leak. There's intermittent leak flags and continuous leak flags.
there's that many leaks going on?
I think it's, Wellesley, feel free to weigh in, but
How do you read this?
Yeah, I don't know.
I believe it's, the leaks are a product of the irrigation systems. but.
Oh, this is your baseline right
So
here?
this is calendar days.
Okay,
And this is usage by day.
okay.
So, you can see normal household usage that goes up to June, and then likely when they turn the irrigation system on through, you can see the increase.
Oh, okay, I get you.
All the way throughout. So this is a daily record of consumption by property. So, given that we have, sorry, Maureen.
Oh, no. Why are some gray, blue, and red?
So if you flip the page over,
Yeah,
what you should have is a daily report.
I see.
An hourly report,
Right.
and per day.
yeah,
So with the color code system, the blue is just a regular watering day. The
Okay.
red is where it could potentially be a leak.
Gotcha.
Or it might be nothing. It could be
Yeah.
that they have a drip system.
would have done 6 loads of,
Exactly.
yeah.
And so what I did is, on the last page, is just a sample
Yeah.
of an hourly report. So you can see how much per day or per hour they're actually going through. The daily
see.
is actually a good overall,
Okay.
amount of data to show exactly how much water they're going through
Yeah.
each day rather than hour, because on those particular reports, you'll see that on some of the reports, they're like over 3,000 gallons a day,
Right,
and that's indicative, obviously.
yeah. And what's the gray?
Oh, that's potential black backflow. So those have to be chased up because they either have no backflow device on their system or it's not
Okay.
working properly. So I have to chase those guys up and get proof that they are working, as they should. On that one report that we have there, it suddenly stopped.
Okay,
So that could be that they had a technician come around,
yeah,
they found the issue and they resolved it, but I'm still going to chase them
all
up.
right, thank you.
So we don't have this technology for every meter in town. And to obtain this, report, we have to go with the intent of data logging, enter the meter ID number in the machine to data log this information. For the ones that, I guess the question to the board is, would the board like us to use this as information to fine for water ban violation?
I mean, it's pretty obvious that, that particular one, I had 600 gallons, or 681 gallons several times, different days.
I'm more of a visuals kind of guy, to see them doing it,
Yeah, me too.
to find them for doing it, and then to use this as support and backup. Because I don't, I'm not saying I don't trust the data, I'm just saying I think this is just a good backup, in my opinion. Know what I mean?
So, how much did this cost you to find out this? I'm sorry, I'm always about money. To find out all of this information, so you went to this house not every day?
No.
Okay,
The meter itself, do you mind giving her?
okay,
So the e-coder has stored 96 days of data. And when we need to gather information on that meter, the technician puts the ID into one of our readers. They go out to the property, they sit there for 5 minutes. It gets all the data in, then they bring it back and
so they get 96 prior days or something like that? So it's one visit to the
Yes.
home? Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
And
but-
one, and the bottom one on Gary's packet,
yeah,
that, the one right there, Gary, that,
That's Alan's packet.
or Alan's packet,
That's why you're confused.
I look at that and it's hard for me, that's clear, that, the top page, it's a clear indication of,
Yeah,
irrigation.
yeah.
yeah. This, in this particular case, is several days in a row,
And
in water.
one other thing too, and just, I reached out to Orleans, because Orleans is enforcing their mandatory restrictions as well. They are a little bit farther ahead of us with meter technology in that they have the automatic reading AMR system where they have basically like a cell phone tower throughout towns, and they can ping the meters every day. And they are using these daily reports of, it can tell flow and volume, and that's how they're issuing fines. They can run a report every day and issue based on that.
The reason I asked, how much work it is to get that is, I listened to Gary's comment that it's, nice to see them, but I mean, unless you have people riding around at 4 in the morning and you can't see much then anyway, I don't know how we're gonna get to where you wanna be.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree with Gary, though. I do too.
Well, you've got somebody reported it, so that's one thing. That could be pure hearsay.
Right.
That could
Exactly.
be.
But I mean, to back it up with, I want to see a visual with the backup, then that.
So what do you
that
mean by a
triggers-
visual?
You want to see somebody,
So-
see the sprinklers going or something like that.
So,
The key to that is that bright green lawn.
Right,
well, I know that.
exactly.
I'm just trying to
You can't
understand.
tell.
well, I'll be honest with you, I mean, I am one of those guys that's driving around at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the
Okay.
morning, just because of my job, right? I'm coming home from work or whatever, I hear it, and then not only am I hearing it, if the ground in front of your property is soaking wet, that pavement.
I hear you say that all the time, and I hand water at the proper hours, and every time I water my plants in the front, I think somebody's gonna think I'm using my irrigation.
Okay, so say I drive by your house and I see that, and I've called in like over 200 houses, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
Well, I'll look and see if we got a well. That's the first
Right.
thing.
I got a brown lawn right
So
beside
I
it.
drive by your house, I see the
You see
ground
the
in front,
list.
I call up,
Yeah,
and I say, hey,
right,
35 Main Street, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then they do a report, they pull it, and they say, oh, well, she's not.
Right.
This is the proof. I mean, this is just the support, the backup.
okay.
Yeah, and so for I think it's just important to say kind of how we've been operating, so far too, right? So as the most recent batch of fines that went out, we, take in anonymous or, phone calls through the website. Those are going into a spreadsheet. We went and did the meter read for August 30th. So the ones that went out, I included the language from the bylaw citing the fines, and that included the meter reading. So there was one that had used, 32,000 gallons of water between August 2nd and,
That's
the
a problem,
30th.
yeah.
That's, and we have reports of, I think that individual property had 9 individual reports of
Yeah.
water use, and then the, usage to back it up. We aren't, people aren't necessarily, although would like it, but they're not necessarily submitting photos with everything. So we've been
I
trying
can
to
do
tease
photos.
this out and validate
Right.
with water use data.
I was actually thinking about doing photos. My wife was with me.
I sent it.
And she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, and I drove around the road, I went back, because I could hear it. It's at nighttime, like, ch-ch-ch-ch. I mean, okay, so you're doing it at midnight, and let's be perfectly honest. Today, if anyone drives out there on a beautiful sunny day like today, and your grass is green, I may not see you watering it, but it's getting watered. Right? So then you run the data on that house. I mean, it's blatant. Your grass is either brown or it's green.
Well, I have one neighbor who's the exception to the rule, but that's an exception. He's hand watering from 5 to 9. He's having a wedding this weekend, and he's been keeping it up for 3 weeks, so once that wedding is done, so be it, so. But I don't understand what John was saying about, I'm just trying to understand what you mean by you need a visual. I mean,
To look, to see somebody before they.
right, but who's gonna be the seeing?
Anybody.
I'm just not getting you. I mean, are you saying that then that's the same as anybody, are you saying a water department person?
Yeah, water department, anybody.
Anybody?
Then they can start looking to see, the data.
So don't go looking for it, use the data if someone reports it.
Right.
So when you say anybody, you don't mean like any person on the street?
Well, if I turn you in, you got a green lawn, you're getting turned in.
Okay, so then
Yeah.
you're the same as anybody, you're different from Gary.
No, Gary's saying, I'm saying I want to see a visual, I want to see it, I want somebody to see it going, or a green lawn, something's,
Right.
then they can start.
When Gary said it, I thought he meant a water department person.
No, he
No.
said anybody.
No, I mean, there are multiple, I'm assuming there are other, there are the regular citizen
Okay.
Yeah.
calling in a complaint or a concern.
So the regular citizen is what we have now.
Yeah.
So that's really like hearsay,
Right.
but you're okay with that?
Not really, but I mean.
Then we back it up.
Yeah, they can back it up with that.
Okay, I'm okay with both of you then.
Right.
I thought you were saying you needed a visual by somebody in some kind of authority or something.
No, I mean, no. If you got a green, nowadays, if you have a green lawn, and
I mean, come on.
It-
I mean,
let's-
Well, now
Unless you
it
got a
is,
well.
Right.
not so easy
I
in
mean,
the beginning.
then, I mean, I've seen people with green lawns, I'm on Pleasant Bay Road near my house, and there's two houses, and it's running down the street.
Right.
So I look
Yeah.
on the list, and they have.
Well, I
they
have
wells.
green lawns on my
There's nothing we
street, but
can
they
do.
must be doing it early in the morning, because I never see them on. you know.
Sandy,
Thank you. I have some stats if anybody's interested.
Yes.
We've sent out 9 citations with a total of $7,850. That breakdown of the 9 are 3 of them were $350, 2 were $650, 2 were $1,150, 1 was $1,350, and the highest one was $1,850. And that's someone who was blatantly watering every day. I looked at the list of how many we have. We have 594 people listed on a spreadsheet. And what we've done is taken the meter readings from August 2nd to August 30th, made the deductions, so we can look down, and that's all on the same spreadsheet now. So we have a column for all the usage. Now the next run is going to be looking at all the complaints and confirming that the usage is there before we issue the citations. And so all of the 494 people have either been reported by staff or neighbors or drive-bys or, and we've just been recording it. So, but we have good information now to go to the next level. It is time consuming. We have to send these return receipt requested. There's a lot of handwork with each piece.
Yeah.
And each piece, just for the postage, is almost $8.
Right.
So just wanted to give you an update of
Thank
where
you.
we're at with this.
but along those lines, right, so say, and I'm just throwing stuff out there, because I don't know what the best or the right way to do this, but we need to police it, unfortunately. But say we have a water department employee come in at 3 o'clock in the morning. Now we're paying what? Are we paying overtime?
No.
We're paying their salary?
No.
Like you said, I mean, I'm aware it's gonna cost us money to police this, which is unfortunate. So do we go along, we have one personnel, policing lawns? As insane as that sounds, I mean, is that what it's gonna come to? I mean, I think, hang on a second, Will's on.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, just on,
Mr. Chair, can I?
Hold on one second, hold on one second, Judith.
just on these reports on the properties that have the e-photometers. Taking one, for example, the top one there that you mentioned, and the highest fine. We went out to data log, and when we do that, we take a picture of the line, so that it corresponds with whatever we find. With this one, just using as an example, we confirmed the data, and because we got reports, multiple reports on a particular property. And let's say we got reports on the 1st, the 3rd, the 5th, the 7th. The report came back, no, it's not just that, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So would we ignore that and say, okay, we're only going to do the ones that came in under the reports? Or do we look at that data saying, it's actually worse than we thought? That's kind of where, how do we use the data? And,
Because, to that point, to what you were saying, these are we're not just going data logging random ones at this point, we're going and data logging ones that have been reported. And now that one that, Alan, that was most obvious, if we only had 4 or 5 reported violations, but we can now tell from the
You're just
usage
backing it
history,
up.
do we issue, a fine in the amount of, for 4 reports, or do we issue it for each day that it was obvious they were irrigating?
Noreen?
Well, I know Judith was waiting, but I want to say something about. Judith, were you waiting?
Yeah, but it's to add something a little bit different, so go ahead, Noreen.
Thank you. So first of all, just to clarify, I'm going to assume when you said amounts like 1350, that was like 10 individual days and 200-300, so all right, so I understand that. See, I'm thinking that what we really have to do, and it would go, just what we need, more projects, right? And it would go in conjunction with examining the bylaws, is I kind of think we have to make some kind of a decision for these odd days, something in the middle. But I think we kind of have to hold our breath for this year and just get through it somehow. But I think this board should consider writing out a water restriction program to have ready for next spring. You know, I mean, this isn't our field of expertise. We have to do some looking into it. And, you know, maybe we can join them with the new bylaw and also clean up our regs and other things that say our procedures and do it all at once. But I think you're right, we have to be ready for next year, and in that discussion, we can better answer some of those very complicated questions that I don't have a clue what to say. You know, if you've got the data says 12 days and 3 people called in, I don't know what to say. What do you do?
Now, what's the percentage of meters are in town do we, or
Yeah, I know.
the E-code?
Good question. We talked about that too, is
Right.
probably like 25% of our list probably have e-coders that we can obtain this data.
So the others you can't?
The others you can't. So then there's also that equality. So if we
Right.
can't do it for the ones that don't have the technology, but we can with the ones that do have the technology, you know,
Right.
Is it fair?
yeah.
Can we put the e-coders on all our irrigation accounts?
That was-
We would like to do that. At least with the list we have
Right,
now
right.
of all the abusers of
Yeah.
our water ban, it would be nice to say those other 75% that don't have e-coders,
Yeah.
let's get in and let's get them changed.
Well, how about if we, anybody that has a backflow, we put in an E-coder on.
A lot of them don't even report them, though, I heard, when they get irrigation.
All right, everyone, hold on a second. Everyone, hold on. Judith, go ahead.
I know it's good. The eco thing is great. When I lived in Italy, public television, well, at that time, we had these little vans that drove around town, and if you got your television on and you weren't paying your television tax, because that was the only stations on the TV, they picked it right up. But I just wanted to say, going back to the well issue, the private wells, and maybe this is like a future agenda item, but I think we should reach out and maybe do a formal letter to our elected officials at the state and encourage them to get some legislation going or something, because I don't think DEP is gonna, they have something to move at that pace. We've seen that, but maybe the legislature can somehow move something that at the state level, if a town or a community has a water restriction, that includes, that has to include private wells as well. Right here.
All right, thanks, Judith. Obviously, we're not gonna solve this, or figure this out right now, or right today, but it's obviously something that's gonna be kept on the table. Did you have anything that you wanted to add to this?
No, so just in conclusion, moving forward, I guess consistent with what we've been doing so far, issuing fines based on reports that we receive and not adding on for additional information gathered through data logging. Right,
I would say, yeah, I mean, again, you're being the devil's advocate, okay, so someone calls in a complaint, we look at it, we send them a fine, $50, $100. What's the homeowner's legal rights? Take us to court and dispute it?
Yeah, under this process, they have a checkbox on the back of the citation that they can check that they'd like to dispute it, and then it goes to the district court, and then they schedule it in.
so that's taking time away from you here at a cost. I mean, it's gonna cost us money, it is. I mean, but what are our choices at this point, Noreen?
You know, you're gonna make me judge all of a sudden, you know, big moment of power.
There's a gap.
I'm always trying to get her a gavel.
She's got pens, as it
But I
is.
can hurt 'em.
I know.
Since we're, you know, this is gonna be a big project on top of other stuff, but, I mean, I don't see that we can do anything else besides take the conservative approach for this fall and just fine them for the number of days that were reported by a third party, whoever that may be, and not add the data info. And the reason that I have some comfort in saying that is that right now, we're not trying to make money by gathering fines. We're trying to get them to stop what they're doing. And so because of that, whether we fine them for 500 or 800, in a way, it doesn't really, it's not, certainly not gonna make up for the loss of the water revenue we would have had by pumping and selling water the way we normally would. So I think we should be conservative for this fall, and then obviously revisit that over the winter and maybe make a better decision, or the same decision.
I agree with that, that's fair. 'Cause we're not trying to make money, we're trying to stop it, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
We don't even know if we're gonna break even at this point.
No.
But we need to stop
we're
it,
not
we need
gonna.
to stop it. Alan?
Yeah, I honestly, I don't think this will be the only year we'll have to deal with it.
I agree.
I think we have a problem, and we have to get it resolved as we move ahead. And people have to come along with us. So at this point, I say we carry on as we're doing,
And I'd be interested, I mentioned to you in, when you go to district court, because I used to have to do that all the time, so let me know when I can be a fly on the wall down there and.
Maybe you can go, I mean,
I'll be happy to,
yeah,
I'll be happy to.
retirees can
Judge
represent.
Noreen?
Yeah, hey, I'm a special employee, why not?
You could, I mean, you're,
I'm taking Sandy, Tracy,
I'll go in the rotation.
All right, let's move on. Is that, are you
Okay.
good there, Dan?
yeah.
All right, let's move on to our water budget.
you giving up on it?
I have only one issue, but I'm interested. I think your budget is not a problem. Well, I mean, maybe one part is a problem. Simply ought to charge 10 cents a gallon for the higher usage and avoid the fine problem.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah,
That's a tip. I'll be back.
all right.
Thank
I
you.
didn't hear what you said.
Boy, that's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Said
Yeah.
charge a higher usage
Yeah.
for the
Irrigation.
extra water beyond our tiers and don't find anyone.
That's interesting. He has some good input because he
How do we
follows
do that?
restrictions.
Right.
Because he went,
He's been following water restrictions like in other states,
Yeah.
and he's come in looking for more information from us. So he's been really putting together good information and mentioned that some states have a restrictor on the meter, so that after
Right,
a
I've
certain
seen
amount of
those.
flow, they're like,
Yeah.
yep,
Shut
no, it
off.
slows down.
those are
These
scary.
are some of the things implemented in other states where
That's
the
right.
drought's more severe. Another one was a water department offering a resident $6 per square foot to remove your lawn. And another state similar that did like $1.50 per square foot. So there's no irrigating, like that they try to be
Okay,
proactive
great.
to eliminate your need for irrigation.
Mhm.
So he's the one that's
That's right.
brought like this information at times from his research.
I mean, you
on
talk
it.
to like the typical outdoors person,
Yeah.
and they're saying a green lawn is the worst thing for the
Yeah,
environment. A natural lawn is the best thing for
Yeah.
insects, birds, migrations,
Yeah.
everything. So these perfectly manicured lawns are actually the worst thing you could do. I mean, even Tommy Birch, when he was in here, saying that, you
Yeah.
know,
Right.
was saying how
All
they're.
the fertilizers
Yeah, the
that go
fertilizer,
down and the
yeah.
steps and.
I saw a little news show on the different kinds of water restricted ones, the ones they're using out in, near the Colorado River and where they give X amount of water to the different states. So in one area, what they were doing was, if they came out and gave you a warning, fine, you got your warning. The next time they came out, there was no fines or restrictions or anything. They put one of those on your house, and what it did then was it gave you enough water for your kitchen sink. For much beyond that, not much, you know, so, I mean, I don't know how they tell the water where to go, you know, but, but, that's pretty scary, you know?
Well, that's the road we're going towards. Sandy or Dan?
Yeah, I can start. So, in the bed, Sandy and I sat down yesterday to put together some updates to the FY24 draft budget, based on best available information we have today. And I guess just starting up at the top with salaries and wages, this indirect number that is in here is just a placeholder. Sandy had carried forward the similar increases that we were provided last year, just to have a placeholder there. In total, the salary and wages line item goes up 5.39%. That said, that does include a number of things that we discussed at our last, or a couple meetings ago, with respect to staffing, recognizing additional workload for admin staff. So looking at the breakdown, which is 2 pages behind, I believe, there's a breakdown of all the positions within the department, and there's reclassifications that were put in here as placeholders pending those future discussions. So there was reclasses included for Tracy, Wellesley, and Sandy for FY24, and then also at the bottom, potentially including a hybrid wastewater foreman position. They would be split between water and wastewater. So this does include everything that we had talked about previously. So this is, I figured, a good place to start for budget discussions with the various boards and committees, to kind of lay out the thoughts and plans for moving forward.
So the water wastewater superintendent is you,
Yeah.
and then Sandy.
Where is this one?
So the wastewater foreman, I'm assuming that 50% is 50% out of water, 50% out of wastewater.
Yeah. We also, to note, you'll see on the furthest right column, the percent, those are percentage of those salaries that are being applied towards the sewer enterprise.
Wait, okay.
So for, we have a couple of the field staff, because the meter reading is a component of sewer billing, as well as admin staff for the workload that's on sewer.
So 2 of the water department employees will be 5% out of 1 and 10%, I'm sorry, not 10.
So the 5%,
And the 10%?
the 5% is the meter reader, who would be collecting the meter reads.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, he's doing sewer too, that's right.
Yeah, because we read the water
Yeah, that
meters for
makes sense.
sewer, so that.
And then the
the share
10%,
of
and then
it
the
goes
10%, oh wait, that's 10%, never
Yeah.
mind, 550, all right.
And
Okay.
then for, going back up to the top, executive assistant, it was 10% for wastewater.
Yep,
Same for billing and comptroller.
okay.
As well as also included, you know, for the, in the 5% that's on the budget is the various step increases for, now that we've had decent amount of turnover, retiring, new employees coming in, there's a lot more people working, progressing through the steps, so there's gonna be impacts from that as well.
So that's a grade 3, step 2 for that distribution D2.
Yep.
All right.
And these, what you're seeing too, when you see kind of 2 positions right next to each other, if you go over to the hours column, So because people's anniversaries happen at different times throughout the fiscal year, a portion of their salary is at one step and a portion is at another step, so that's why you see more positions, if you will, than we actually have, because that reflects the difference in pay grades.
Okay. Noreen?
So, we had talked in a general way about the increasing wastewater role and, you know, some way to put forward a plan for, you know, higher salaries as acknowledgements of the staffs, what they've been doing. So, are any of those concepts in here?
Yeah, that's what all of those, so that these salaries that are included in here are based upon the regrade, potential regrade.
Okay, and so, but that wasn't gonna be for all the water employees.
Right.
So, which ones are higher, do you mind?
Yeah, so executive assistant, the third one down, that
Yeah.
E7, step 6.
Yep.
The billing manager, that's 60%.
All more than
right now.
percentages.
Yeah,
The ones with the percentages, the comptroller,
okay.
and then
All right.
wastewater foreman, so those,
So it's only the ones with the
Yeah.
percentages. So it's not just that you've moved a percentage of their salary to wastewater, it's that the salary is increased,
correct.
right?
Yep.
So now, on your salary, this looks like your old rate,
Yes.
but we had also discussed as part of this, a higher step. And so that's not reflected in FY '24.
Not yet. Nope.
But the ladies are.
Yes.
Is somebody gonna tell me why?
It's gonna be on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay. I'll wait with bated breath.
It was too late to put it on the agenda for this meeting.
All right, no, that's all right. It's early for budget, we got a long ways to go.
Yeah.
All right, so I just wanted to understand that they had increased with it. Okay, thank you.
So that's breakdown on salary and wages. If you want to jump into expenses, and just for discussion purposes, it'll probably be easier to follow on the detailed breakdown. It's a couple pages into the packet. Oh, sorry, thank you. Also, another thing to note for the seasonal position, we have reduced the seasonal laborers from 3 to 2, and we have brought the project, or funding the project assistant that we had historically funded. One thought there is that if we are enforcing restrictions the way that we are going to need to, that we could conceivably, well, also for the project assistant could serve two functions. We had talked about potential part-time support on the wastewater side of things, as well as that person could conceivably come in and drive around, you know, that 4 to 9 in the morning irrigation and do policing on that front as well. All right. So this is the document that I am looking at. The ones with the green and the red comments. So we've updated, if everyone's ready to go.
Yeah, I got where it is.
Keep going.
I think the other way.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Oh, okay.
It's like the reverse tread on a meter.
There you go.
This is the one?
That's the
Yeah.
one. So highlighted in red and green are increases and decreases within the, individual line items. So I guess I don't know if you want to go line by line or just highlight the big ones. Starting at the top, feel free to tell me to stop at any point. Fringe benefits, there is an increase in the field union's clothing allowance, so that's reflecting the increase in the contract based on the new contract. The electric utility, we're proposing to increase by 40,000. It's about 11.12%. So the way that we did this, we don't have a clear understanding yet as to what the electric increase is going to be. We've heard a variety of percentages. We had looked at that 400, our electric utility bills are basically, they're made up of the demand fee and then the electrical usage fee. So it's about 50-50. So what we took and looked at the usage, which would be about 200,000, and then increasing that by about 15%, which is kind of what I've been hearing on the street as far as electric cost increase, but this is something that we may need to revisit as we get further through the year. There's clearer direction as to which way it's trending. Moving forward, vehicle and equipment maintenance and building and grounds maintenance were based on actual from FY22. We did increase the building and grounds last year about 78,000. That was because we had debt fall off and we were reserving that for a special project. We were hoping to do the fiber project out here, but I think we're going to have to use it for the Azalea Drive Bridge replacement project, but that's a separate discussion. Moving forward, professional services, reducing based on actuals, reducing 25,000 out. We have increase in advertising as well as postage, just based on increased expenses. Propane decrease based on actuals. Same for bulk fuel.
A question on that one?
Yeah.
You know, I just don't know how you're doing it. I mean, it seems like, so I don't know when the new contract for the town would have come in, probably last spring or summer. I mean, I expected a giant increase in gasoline and diesel for all your trucks. So I don't know how you're doing it.
So part of it's chain use, part of it is for what, the propane or the fuel? Here?
Bulk fuel, is that what we're looking at?
Bulk fuel, so
Yeah.
everything that's in it, your gasoline, your...
And we've been basing it on actuals. I can follow up with DPW. I'm not sure what actually transpired with the county fuel bid.
Yeah.
I know when, at the time, I saw emails going around about it being advertised, about the
Yeah.
opening, and then I want to say they had pulled it because that was right at the time prices were hitting $5 and no one
Yeah.
wanted to commit to a year-long.
Yeah.
So let me,
Yeah, and even if they came out with one, it'll probably be back to the old days when it's got a fuel escalation clause on it
Right.
anyway,
Yeah.
so we're not gonna get any deal. I just wanna make sure we have enough money. I don't know how you're doing it. Doing good.
Can I just add to that real quick? Because we don't usually get figures for bulk fuel,
Yeah.
even from DPW, who manages, the
Mhm.
purchasing and procurement, we've always just
Wow.
sort of followed our
Okay.
internal, well,
Yeah.
this is what the percentage increase
Yeah.
is. Unless there's a superseding directive, like
Yeah.
from the town administrator. But usually, we don't
Right, yeah.
get that information.
Well,
We see it's bid out, but we don't really even know, like, I don't know what our gallonage is, what everybody's using, what's diesel
All right.
versus,
Yeah.
regular fuel.
I see.
Yeah, so that's-
Yeah, okay.
They don't have
Well-
a pin up there that you,
yeah.
they have a pin number, so you don't know which trucks are that
Yeah, it's all,
Yeah.
each car has its own.
pin number, yeah.
Yeah.
So you could do, that's how you figure the actual?
Well, actual is based on what DPW bills us, so they bill us quarterly, I believe,
Yes.
on bulk fuel,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we track it through invoicing
Oh.
side of it.
Okay.
Treatment supplies decreased based on actuals. We had a pretty decent increase in treatment chemicals. The most recent bid for potassium hydroxide, that we pay for that by pound, so that increased 19 cents per pound, and we use lots of pounds. So, service installation supplies increased based on actuals, similar with pipes, valves, and fittings. We saw decreases in police details and road repairs, also based on actuals. Tank inspections and generator maintenance were increased based on actuals. And then last on this page is uniforms and safety supplies, which we decreased based on actuals. That we had increased the budget last year for COVID supplies, things like that, and we're no longer, thankfully, in COVID. So that, if I just to close out forward, that reflects a 3.42% increase in our overall expenses.
Not bad,
No, really.
considering.
I was questioning water main replacements because we're running an antique shop.
We moved that.
That's Alan's line.
Believe me, I'm with you.
Don't say that, don't be offended, Alan, I don't think she was talking about you. I don't think so.
But it just seemed, I don't know, so you
As
tell
for
me.
level fund, why it was level funded or what we're,
Yeah, why it was level funded, I thought with the antique water mains in the ground that we might be better off with a higher amount.
so, while I would love to fund this at
Yeah,
a much, much bigger.
Yeah.
So this is more for stuff that come, I don't know that we'd ever be able to fund this line item sufficient to actually do, you know, replace a road,
Yeah.
you know, with a decent, anything
Yeah.
decent. So one thing that this line item could be used for, and what we had over the past year, when they installed the sewer main on Hardin Lane, they put it too close to the water main.
Yeah.
So when we reran the water main, we also used this previously, if I'm not mistaken, for when DPW was paving roads. If we had a 2-inch water main that was stubbing off of that, we
Yeah.
would do a T valve and a stick of pipe to get off the road so we could come back and continue on and remove and replace 2-inch. So this is,
so it sounds like you're saying like any gigantic break, we would have to bid out or do a
yeah,
job
like
or something
any
like
major
that.
project.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
okay.
generally speaking, if you're doing any serious main work, it becomes an article.
Right.
Right, but I meant if it was an emergency, that's
Yeah.
what I was worried about.
Yeah. That's tape.
Tape?
And also too, Noreen, in addition, so the water main replacement is one line item,
Yeah.
but the one above it, you know, pipes, valves, and fittings is also where we
That's true.
purchase,
Okay.
repair couplings, valves, fittings.
Yeah,
Um,
there's some movement back
Yeah.
and forth between them. Yeah, okay. Just reading.
So then, looking at revenue, right now there is not currently a rate increase proposed. So just carrying forward what we had put together for the rate increase and tracking moving forward. Our revenues are anticipated at 5.19 million. It was a 1% increase over last year. Total expenses being 4.448 million with a budgeted surplus of 741,000.
Noreen,
So our rate increases were for fiscal '22 and fiscal '23.
Yeah.
And they will have run out unless we change this.
And it's probably going to mention it under the capital projects discussion, but it's something that we do need to go back to the drawing board on, given the inflated
Yeah.
construction costs that we're
Yeah.
looking at.
One little question I had was, and I understand it may have to go through criminal court or whatever, but until you told that story, I would have expected to see a new line that would have been for water ban fines. But now it sounds like they'd be going to the town.
So it gets paid to the town clerk, and then the town clerk submits a form to the treasurer to transfer the money into to I believe it's gonna come to our revenue account.
So we'll need an account.
It's scheduled to come into miscellaneous for now.
Yeah, okay.
And as we feel the need,
Yeah.
and that becomes a higher
Yeah.
amount, we'll have a separate line
Yeah,
item
so we,
moving forward
so we
in the
could, because
future.
I know
Yeah.
people will always do want to have a line, so when
Yeah.
people say, how much did you collect, it's easy to, thank you.
Judith, you still with us?
Yep, I am.
Okay. All right, moving on to wastewater, Dan?
The board mentioned at the last meeting that it may be a bit much to try to cover water and wastewater budgets
Yeah.
in the same one, so
Yeah.
and given where that budget's so reliant upon Chatham, and we just don't have the information, there's too much to discuss at this point.
Nobody's complaining that it's not there, dear.
Move on to well floor, cleaning and redevelopment contract with DL Mayer, Mar, in the amount of $18,092.50.
So I do have to ask the board to consider an alternative motion, so I've been working back and forth with DLMAR to obtain signed copy of the agreement, their insurance certificates, and all their paperwork to complete their package, if you will. I didn't get it until Monday night, so I tried to get over to the finance director, but she wasn't able to get her signature on it back for this meeting. So if the board is willing, I would ask that a motion be made to approve the contract contingent upon the finance director's signature, so that when I do receive it, the board could come in and sign the contract before the next meeting. So we could keep getting it.
Mr. Chairman, I move, we approve. The contract pending the finance director's signature.
Between, is it $18,092.50 and
Yep.
$21,460?
It's the 18,09250.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so the motion is to approve with stipulation of the finance committee, finance director's signature for $18,092.50.
You got it.
All right, that's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? I'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Thompson?
Aye?
Ms. Donahue?
Aye.
Mr. Dahl?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye.
And aye. Thank you. All right, 2022 special town meeting wastewater articles, discussion and possible vote to support.
All right, so as you're probably all aware, there is a special town meeting scheduled for October 18th, and the first two articles are being considered for wastewater for Article 1, and wastewater and other affordable housing or housing components for Article 2. So what Article 1 is seeking to accomplish is authorization for the town to secure easements for wastewater pump stations for Phase 3 and the Route 28 dry sewer main project. If you want to give me a second, I did create maps this morning, but I forgot to print them out, so I can grab them and...
We'll see him next time, right?
Yeah, it's fine with me.
All right, so keep going. So for Phase 3, we're really looking for easements at the end of Chestnut Lane. That's off the Elm, off the Pleasant Bay Road. We'll be looking for one on Wilma's Way, or it may be two on Wilma's Way. There's a parcel of woods, or a plot of woods between two houses, so the middle where we would likely put the pump station straddles two lots, so we need authorization for both of those lots.
So these lots are all off, is it Pleasant Bay Road or Bay Road?
Not
It's all
all.
behind you.
Yeah.
So Wilma's Way,
Is 39.
yeah,
Yep. It's
And
that
then-
whole corner back there, between 39 and Pleasant Bay Road,
Exactly.
that corner back there.
Yeah.
Okay.
there is an additional pump station not on here that we don't need an easement for, because it's the Pleasant Bay Road parcel of land that that we own, the Water Wastewater Commission owns. So right now, we're looking at 3 primary locations for Phase 3. That was Chestnut, Wilma's Way, or 3 Wilma's Way, 11 Wilma's Way, and the Standish Wood Circle parcels. Also included in here are some potential alternatives. So 0 Standish Wood Circle is the cluster development open land that surrounds Standish Woods. So that is at the end of Martha Eaton Court and at the entrance to Standish Woods. So if for some reason, as we get further into engineering, that the Chestnut Lane station doesn't look like it's going to work, that we would have an alternative and authorization to pursue those if needed. Another one, as an alternative, you'll see land formerly owned by Annie Carnes near the intersection of Round Cove and Pleasant Bay. That's what I'm referring to as an owner's unknown parcel, although there's a known former owner. I tried to trace this out through the Registry of Deeds to see if I could find property records. I couldn't find anything beyond 1925. But this is an alternative station location if we run into issues at Standish Woods entrance or at Martha Eaton Court or at Chestnut. And then I did send an email this morning to propose removing 9 Sadie's Way. Given the nitrogen removal requirements in the watershed that Huckleberry Path and Sadie's Way reside in, we don't need to sewer those for nitrogen removal purposes, so I am not going to be making the recommendation to move forward with doing that street as part of Phase 3. And so that covers Phase 3. Also included are the private roads. So because there are a number of private roads, we do need to secure easements on those private roads to install the sewer mains. So that's why those street listings are in there as well. Also jumping back up to the top of the parcel list, we have 52 Route 28 and 62 Route 28. 52 Route 28 is the primary candidate at this point. That is to the left of Depot Road. It's the old white house with big red X on it. There's 2 parcels of land there. And then there was potential discussion with the church across the street at number 62 Route 28. Though I'm not aware there's a funding source to pursue that because there's no money in wastewater enterprise being proposed and there's no free cash being proposed. So I believe that may still being figured out. But that said, our primary site right now is looking at 52, given the indeterminate state of 62. The funding for Article 1 is in the amount of $70,000. That is to cover the cost of any negotiation that we need to do with the property owners to secure those easements. Under the Phase 2 construction, we were granting, I think, between $5,000 and $10,000. I figured we need some room for inflation there because everything's gone up. And it is being proposed to come from the sewer retained earnings on Article 1. Article 2 kind of builds on the 62 Route 28 property. It's being proposed here for housing, cemetery, and sewer purposes. Like I mentioned, I'm not sure the status of this one. As I understand it right now, there's no proposed use of sewer enterprise funds for 62 Route 28.
Noreen?
Well, I have one little general question before I talk about another issue. You mentioned removing Dan Sadie's Way because it's not needed from that area. But I had heard other questions about Bascom. Is that also not needed?
So I have to look at the map to see exactly where the line is. So I have requested in a dedicated meeting with the Board of Selectmen upcoming, because what we need to look at is pump stations, potential areas that may be candidates for low pressure, And then, sorry, I just completely lost my train of thought.
Bascom.
Yeah, Bascom, oh, and also what streets are in, what streets are out.
Right.
So we have streets that need to be in for nitrogen removal
Right.
purposes, and then with the case of Bascom Hollow, that was under order of the Board of Health. So
Right.
my intention is to lay that all out for the
Right,
selectmen
okay.
to
That's all I-
say,
yeah.
you know.
So this
yeah,
will
nay.
become clearer,
Yeah.
what's needed now. Okay, so I'm going to put that aside. I totally support, of course, a request for easements to get done as soon as possible, so we can get on the SRF list coming out the first of the year and be as best lined up as we possibly can for some forgiveness and some money. So my problem is with the funding source. So I don't want to make a huge discussion about that right now. The meeting's been going for a while and everything else, so I'll just tell you quickly what's really been bothering me for a week. And I did some printouts too. Where I'm coming from is that when the Sewer Enterprise Fund was initiated in 2018, you know, we didn't know we were going to have this long gap, that we were going to have, you know, a bad overbid followed by COVID. You know, we thought, you know, by now we'd be done with phase 2 and it would have been the whole phase 2, we'd be into phase 3. But unfortunately, those things happen, so we're now just starting to operate these funds. Really, we're in our beginning stages. And this transfer out of wastewater retained earnings is probably the first one. I won't swear there's not another one that I've forgotten, but it's probably one of the first, if not the first, transfer out. So, I mean, I'm fine with this, and I'll vote for this and everything else, but to my fellow commissioners, I would say, if I'm this uncomfortable with it, I've got a feeling others may be too. For instance, this particular article is for phase 3 and for West Harwich. It's got nothing to do with phase 2. We, as a board, control only the areas where wastewater flows. So we certainly don't control West Harwich, and we certainly don't control phase 3. They are under the purview of the Board of Selectmen. So it makes me uncomfortable to spend sewer enterprise funds for Board of Selectmen projects that eventually would be done through debt. They would still be done, and they'd be done through debt. And to the taxpayer, it doesn't make a heck of a lot of difference with this. So what I'm asking is that as we go forward this year, because I think it'll just get messier and messier, that we talk about maybe getting more guidance, or maybe writing our own policy on how we're going to use how we feel that the sewer enterprise fund retained earnings should be used. And I'll just point out a couple of quick things. Those two are for Alan. Here's two of you. Here's two for Dan. And here's two for John. And I have two for Sandy if she wants. But what these couple of documents show you, and there are, you know, like so many, but is in the one marked, okay, so in the one marked ATM May 7th, 2018, it's not clear, you know, and this happens to us all the time. When we're first doing it, we make it so broad, because God forbid we don't want to, you know, box ourselves out of anything. And then when we come to actually use it, then we have arguments about what was intended. And it's only been 4 years, and I'll bet you there's 40 people that have different versions of what we meant at the time. And these were written by the former TA and the and council. So the committees and things at the time really had no input into them. But in this one, you'll see that it's to cover the, you know, debt, et cetera, everything, operations of a sewer utility. In the explanation, it defines it more to refer only to phase 2. But of course, the explanation doesn't count legally. So at any rate, I'll just point out the bottom line of the explanation where it says, the sewer enterprise account, which is what we're spending now, will not be spent, but will be allowed to build up so when payments and necessary funds will be available. Again, that's only in the explanation. The only other thing I'll point out quickly, and I will not go on about it, but in the other handout I gave you, the 2-page that is stapled, that is a section from our charter pertaining to water and wastewater commissions. And on the second page, you'll see the very important line, it's the only clear line I can see, that says in 664, notwithstanding other provisions, etc., the Board of Selectmen shall be responsible for the design and construction of the town's sewer system and for its implementation. So at least we have that to clearly say to them, West Harwich is your job. Phase 3 is your job. Phase 2 is our job. You know, so again, I'm not trying to resolve this right now, but I'll tell you, right now, I don't know, for instance, are we required to vote on these? I don't think our vote really matters. Are the Board of Selectmen allowed to spend sewer enterprise funds? I'm not really sure, based on the materials we developed. It doesn't seem right, but, you know, I don't see it in writing anywhere. And my biggest fear is that the Board of Selectmen tend to always come to us first, or not at all, which is bad too. But they'll come to us, for instance, we have the vote next May coming up for $47 million, right? And I guarantee you what will happen unless we have some conversations is the Board of Selectmen will say to us, well, you folks have to vote on that. And it's not our concern. That $47 million project is under theirs to design and construct. But we'll probably vote because they like our vote anyway, because we're interested parties. But then, unfortunately, then they vote based on our recommendation. So it's like, to me, the cart is completely before the horse. You know, it should be their decision to do these projects, you know, first, not based on us. We're interested bystanders, you know. So all I can say is I'm introducing a problem that I don't have a solution for.
Well, I see, like in this case for Route 28, it's a project that we, as a water, wants to get our water main up.
Right.
So while we're digging it up, you know, we might as well put the sewer main in at that point.
Right.
You know, it makes for a good project. But, you know, other than that, we probably wouldn't be involved at all.
Right.
Well, how long can that pipe sit in the ground just waiting to be used?
Tracy wants these copies, she can have them.
Yeah. So, man, we're replacing 1940s
Yeah.
water main.
So my other comment to this, Noreen, is the sewer enterprise account will not be spent, but be allowed to be built up so when payments are necessary, funds will be available. Isn't that like kind of contradicting itself?
Yeah. Well, see,
So maybe it's not going to be spent, but allowed to be
I
built up
know.
for how long?
Yeah, it should, it should.
And then, I mean, some periods to be.
What we meant at the time, see, these things get written years before we're using them. That's why this is another great year to clean some of this up. At the time, what we meant was that money was to be used to make up the difference between the connected users and the IMA payments. I mean, that's what was meant, you know.
That was the intent of that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, so, I mean, it doesn't really matter at this point to me what we meant in 2018. I'm not like that. You know, I would like to figure out what we want and go in that direction.
I mean, if we're gonna have rules, let's have.
That's right.
Good.
You know, but, I mean, you understand that I'm concerned about okaying this money because I'm confused about who's right where it is. So at any rate, what I was thinking about is, I don't want to have a discussion with the Board of Selectmen about this at this point, because they really only have their opinions too. You know, these are documents we all wrote, and now we've got to figure them out. I was wondering if we could call in somebody like Mark Abrams or something as a start to try to get some information about when it's an enterprise fund. Like I was doing some reading from our courses, you know, a lot of the stuff, it's an enterprise fund, but it doesn't have a board, you know, so that doesn't apply, you know. But I'm trying to figure out a way for us to get, I don't want us to feel this way every time, to have another board telling us, well, you have to vote, and us feeling like, well, I'm not even sure we have to vote, number one, and number two, I'm not even sure you can have my money, you know, so, you know, nothing with the easements, we'll vote in a minute, and that's all fine and dandy, you know. But I just wanted to throw it out there to find out what you folks, I don't want to feel unsure for the next 5 years.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah.
One thing, just gonna throw it out there, as far as clarification, if there's, and I'm just been trying to think about this in my head, right? Because if we're gonna go through charter bylaw review process, and there's gonna be amendments proposed to both the bylaws and the charter, if, you know, it wouldn't be, I guess now would be the time to try to clarify or add any language that could set out. And that was my first thought. And then my second thought, playing devil's advocate, was, well, if we limit, or, you know, try to state that it shall be used for, or I guess, is it not to be used for implementing the CWMP, but instead of, I mean, I guess that's the language that, you know, we need to clarify. My concern was that we don't want to paint ourselves into a corner.
That's right.
Because at some point, we're not going to be building a sewer system, and hope, you know.
And that's exactly right, and that's why in the explanation, I think that language was too limiting.
Right.
Because it talks only about, it's specific to phase 2, and the question, you know what I'm saying, as we go forward, it's going to have to cover a lot more than that. So I'm just putting that out there. I hate to put out problems without solutions, but, you know, think of it in terms of well, I can't say come May in terms of, you know, right now, our retained earnings, when is it proper to spend our retained earnings? I guess that would be my question. And I don't know the answer. So is that something we can talk about over the fall maybe? And
yeah, I mean, I think there's certainly room for clarification on you know, uses of sewer enterprise. As far as legality, I would say, based on the article language, that what we're doing is within, you know, is acceptable, given that this is for cover the cost of operational debt, capital, and other. Like, is this? I would consider this a capital purchase of the sewer enterprise fund for sewer purposes, but that doesn't answer your questions.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to beat it up any more than that.
Is this a vote that needs to happen today?
It would be ideal, yeah, because the warrant needs to close by the 19th, I believe.
Yeah, no, we would have to.
September? Yeah.
But we're told we would have to. I mean, I don't really even know if our vote influences it, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, yeah. The only connection we really have is with Dan doing the project.
Exactly.
You know, because other than that, they have sole control of construction.
They give us the money and they take it away.
Well.
Yeah, no, I mean.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Judith.
Maybe the time won't work, but would it make sense to have a joint meeting with them?
To do what?
Have a joint meeting with them.
Have a joint meeting with them?
Before September 19th? That's not gonna happen. That's not gonna happen.
If I can answer, I would, you know, Judith, the way I feel right now is, they don't know any more than we do about how this is supposed to run. You know, I mean, most of the people in this room were there in 2018, and actually, in terms of the selectmen, there's less there than were here. So, you know, I wouldn't want to put myself in a position right now, we're talking to the Board of Selectmen, and they just say, okay, this is how it works, you know what I mean? I'd like to have some other experts' opinions first. That's just how I feel.
Okay, and I'm in the car right now, so I can't see exactly what's in front of you guys. So-
I know.
So what needs to happen today, I guess?
Oh, today we're just gonna vote on the article, just like we always do. I'm just raising a concern about them, that the use of the funding source, that hopefully we can get clarity on over the course of this year.
Okay, so you're not concerned about this particular vote?
Well, I am, but I'm not overly concerned because we're living under subsidy. We got the money from the general fund and it's going back there, so, you know, it's not as neat as I would like it, but no, I'm gonna vote yes.
Okay, thanks. I just needed that clarification.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so we need a motion to support the articles for 2022 special town meeting. Is it Article 1 and 2, Dan, or just?
Yeah, I would
Article-
say for the, I think it
Acquisition.
would make sense for the board to support Article 1 in its entirety, and then if the board wants to take a position on Article 2, I would recommend that it be in support of, you know, the sewer portion of that property acquisition, but that you wouldn't be making a recommendation on the housing or cemetery portion of it, because there's 3 potential uses for Article 2, so that the vote would be to support 62 as an alternative wastewater pump station site, should the town acquire it for other purposes.
Okay.
So, a motion to support Article 1 of the various properties for the Route 28 dry sewer project and Phase 3 wastewater project.
Okay.
I move we adopt.
Second.
Any further discussion? I'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Thompson?
All right?
Ms. Donahue?
Aye.
Mr. Goff?
Aye.
Ms. Underwood?
Aye.
Aye.
And did that vote also say that it was coming from sewer retained earnings?
No, I didn't say that.
But do we have the do we have that?
I would, you definitely have the authority to spend sewer retained earnings.
Okay.
If that's what we're doing, I'll include that.
Thanks.
So to amend the motion to include
Sewer enterprise
funded from
fund
the-
of 70,000.
wastewater fund.
I'm just thinking when we try to trace this later on, it might be easier if it says that. That's what my second said.
That's what?
I'm seconding.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? I'll take another roll call vote. Mr. Thompson?
So, wait, before I vote, so we're including the money from Article 16? Is that what's happening?
From
Or is this new money for Article 1?
Out of the
new money
wastewater,
for Article 1.
Oh, okay.
out of the
So-
wastewater budget.
The wastewater enterprise fund had certified for FY22, I think it was 262,000 or so.
Oh, oh.
So this would be coming from that.
Oh.
However, that does not include what will be certified for FY22 that has not gone in yet.
I think it was only 200. I think they did 50 less as one of the final adjustments, but we can we can check that out of the subsidy. I think they needed it forever.
All right, so then, what should be included is from the wastewater enterprise fund.
Yes.
It doesn't have anything to do with Article 16.
No.
Right.
particularly.
No,
Okay.
no, that's
that
the
confused
old
me.
one.
Okay.
Okay, so
Yes.
Mr. Thompson, Ms. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Ms. Donahue, Underwood,
Yes.
and it's a yes myself.
Okay.
Now, we also need a motion for Article 2, the acquired parcel of land located at 62 Route 28, specifically for the wastewater side of the project.
Well,
And we don't
we
have.
wouldn't be,
funds.
we shouldn't vote on this.
So
That's a
if,
selectman's rule.
yeah, well, this one, so we originally identified 52 as a primary pump station site, and now there's an ongoing discussion with the church, I guess, about that being a potential site for affordable housing and cemetery purposes. So if the town wants to go for 62 as, you know, for affordable housing and cemetery purposes, we could piggyback on 62 and not take 52. So this, again, is an alternative, so this would just be looking for your support for,
So it's not looking for funding, you're just looking
No.
for support of the
On this one.
land acquisition.
yeah.
So all we do is
Okay.
make a motion to
Alright,
support the land acquisition at 62 Route 28, specifically to use it as a pump site for the wastewater project, wastewater system.
So moved.
You threw me off on that one. I so moved. Any further discussion? I'll take a roll call.
Second. Need a second. Or did you?
I made the motion, Mr. Thompson second. Mr. Thompson,
Aye?
Ms. Donahue,
Abstain.
Mr. Goff,
Aye.
Ms. Underwood,
Aye.
and it's an aye for myself, so 4-1. I'm sorry, one abstain. All right. 5 million ARPA grant, small medium project letter of intent.
So when I reached out to the ARPA coordinator after the selectmen approved the Great Sand Lakes project. And in that conversation, she had informed me that they had just released another $5 million in grant, for competitive grant, looking for regional water projects or housing projects between $200,000 and $500,000. So it is a competitive grant, and the applications are due by September 30th. So I had a couple ideas I wanted to run by the board and get your blessing before pursuing them. First one hits both the regional component and the water component. I was looking to submit a letter of intent to construct new interconnections between our water system and Dennis, Chatham, Brewster, because they're all old and they need to be rebuilt. So if we do need to tie into one or another, that we're in position and ready to do it. The other one, I was going to submit another letter to see if we could get funding for the second phase of the well exploration in North Harwich. It doesn't check the regional box, but it is a water project, so that would certainly look good. And she said we could submit as many as we wanted, so.
Your ideas are great, but it's like you always come up with new things, and then you're doing even more, you know what I mean? I wish we could find some that were on the already planned to do list, you know, that were, like, I mean, how about something crazy like painting the Pleasant Lake Water Tower even?
See, these are only looking for projects up to 500,000 for this
Oh,
one. So the
sorry.
5 million total is going to be divvied up into,
I see, never mind.
if it was, I would have certainly,
Nice try.
yeah. So so I'm thinking these are two projects that we could fit in, you know, the price point for the grant application.
Do you know, I like this interconnections with other towns, starting on Route 28. How many feet of asbestos?
It's from Chatham Town Line to just about the end of Chatham Road. I don't remember the linear feet off the top of my head, I should.
And reconnect,
Yeah.
you know. So, stuff like that, you know. Yeah, by all means,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I'd love to see us get rid of that.
Yeah. I want to try to get it so we can design the interconnections so that they don't need to be a confined space in a vault that, you know, doesn't get maintained. What I'd like to do is set up a dual hydrant setup with like a 5-gate cluster spaced in a way that we can get a tow-behind pump. Because my concern is that if Chatham needs water, you know, it's one thing for us to open a valve, it's another to coordinate our pumps so that if their pumps are pumping and ours aren't, they're not creating a backflow situation. Or if they need water while their pumps are, so we can make sure the water's going the direction
Sure.
that we want it. We can meter it, we can put a backflow device on it, and it's something that we can store outside of a hole in the ground. That it would be easy to flush through the interconnection, so both water systems could flush during hydrant flushing, and then it would be, a pump that we could potentially share as a, Barnstable Water Utility member that could go to any one of these locations and move water if needed. That's right.
Yeah, I like that, when you think about it. Chatham asking for water from Howard's, and then we give them a shot with all that asbestos. Oh, I tell you.
Okay, I'm gonna have to, Mr. Chair, unfortunately jump off.
Okay, Judith, thank you.
Bye, Judith.
Thank you. All right, see you guys soon. Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Judith, if you like, I'll send you those things from the charter.
I would love that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll send them by email.
Thank you so
No,
much.
that's
You're
just-
welcome.
Have a good day.
You too.
Guidance,
Bye.
looking for guidance, no direction, support. All right, FY '24 capital projects for water.
All right, so, this was just, it was a new form this year, but it came filled with projects that we had submitted previously, voted unanimously by the board. The one change on water is the placeholder that we had for FY '24 was for new well construction. We're not at a point yet where we can do construction. We have to do the prolonged pump test, and really what I'm referring to now is the second phase of engineering for that well development. I have a scope of work that GZA provided.
Yeah, which one are we on?
That one.
Okay.
Yep.
All
Yeah.
right, all right.
So we have to do, sorry, I had a scope of work from GZA who did phase 1 of the investigation. Like I just mentioned, I'm going to be looking to submit a letter of intent for some of these funds. So my hope is that we can reduce this by as much as 500,000. So that's update on that project. FY '24 pavement management plan. This is to repave the T2 well field. Steve went and met the Dirt Works, who has the county bid for pavement, and measured up. It looks like the placeholder that we had is sufficient to cover paving all of T2 with the current bid prices. Moving on, we have the FY '24 Route 28 water main replacement project. So, right now, the SRF application was submitted with an estimated project cost of $14.7 million. However, the caveat to that is a couple million of it is global fill. So when you do work in named street like Mass DOT, Route 28, governed by them, instead of traditionally backfilling with sand like we do everywhere else, we have to do controlled density fill or flowable fill. It's like an excavatable concrete. That's supposed to help minimize settling in the road and result in a better, longer road. Because they're repaving at least half of the project area, I'm anticipating we should get a waiver for at least half of the controlled density fill portion of the project. So we could see $1 million+ reduction there in cost. Also, I just saw a clip from a presentation about principal forgiveness, and I believe if we are still categorized as a disadvantaged community when the new calculation's done this year, we'll get an additional 10% of principal forgiveness from that, in addition to, I believe, it was either 3.3 or 6.6 already entitled under that program. So we could see anywhere from 13 to 16% principal forgiveness.
Is that part of the infrastructure bill?
Yeah.
All right. That number doubled.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Very much so.
Noreen?
So, So would this one go through as an override? I mean,
It would be, no, because it's not on the, it'll be, we'll have to ultimately do a rate increase to support the debt, but that's one of the differences is between us and the
Right.
town did it.
okay, so we would be able to take an SRF or whatever loan, and, all right, it does not have to be an override.
No, and that's the next, Stan and I were talking the other day, the next step in this, now that we have the capital forms, is to redig into the budget and
Right.
evaluate the debt payments, so I
Okay,
won't be able to accurately, or I guess, it may be an effort in futility until we get the intended use plan and the affordability calculations. Because I don't want to go and build all the debt schedules today based on all the assumptions,
Right.
or based on 14.7 million. Though February and March, we should have an understanding of what we're going to get for principal forgiveness, so we
Right.
can use that
yeah,
to build the debt schedules to inform what we'll need to do for FY '25 or '26 when the debt comes on.
what
after the
piece
fact.
in that does the intended use play?
So that's the first thing that comes out. In my conversations with the Clean Water Trust, he said that once the intended use plan comes out, we should also know what we're getting for subsidy. So we submit the project evaluation form. We just submitted, was it August 12th, I think it was? Then DEP, the state ranks every project that was submitted, and they publish the intended use plan.
Oh, is that sheet that comes
That's-
out in
yeah, it
January?
says
Okay, I
what
didn't know the
projects
name
they're
of it. All
funding.
right, yeah, all
So
right.
if our project didn't rate high enough,
Yeah.
we wouldn't show up on the intended use plan, we wouldn't be able
All
to
right,
get the
all right,
SRF
yeah.
loan. But my understanding is when that IUP does come out, we should also get accompanying information as to what principal forgiveness. So it would be at that point, I'd be looking to evaluate future rate impacts
Yeah.
and things of that nature. So, moving on to FY '25, we had a replacement for the backhoe we use out here as our yard machine. Crew is hoping that instead of buying a backhoe, we can replace that with a compact loader, because we don't use the backhoe attachment, so that was unchanged. We have FY '25 distribution system upgrades. This was the new one that we added last year in response to the infrastructure bill. I haven't yet acted on the $300,000 that was appropriated in the fall of last year. I think it would be better to wait and see how the infrastructure bill money's gonna flush out before I really take, and I don't honestly think I could take on
Right.
another project.
Just housekeeping on this one. I don't know if you want to drop off the words "build back better" from the
Right.
description and from the, I know you've already probably submitted them, but
Yeah,
just,
that's dead.
yeah.
Yeah. Next on the list, FY '25, paint the P Lake tank.
Okay, that's, yeah.
This year, I do now actually officially have under contract the full engineering coating evaluation for that tank. Is gonna get done this year. So that's gonna better inform what overcoat, whether we can overcoat, if we have to blast and go down to raw metal. So that's to determine the integrity of what's there, to see if we can go over it or not. Moving forward, we had vehicle replacements in FY '25. Those have stayed consistent. FY '26, again, this was a placeholder project that predated the infrastructure bill, but was a discontinuity upgrade project that was in our 30-year master plan that has stayed in the queue. Want to jump right into wastewater?
Yeah.
On wastewater, Phase 3, or FY '24 East Harwich collection system expansion. So that presently estimated at 47 million, though we are feverishly working to refine that number.
So I see on the second box from the bottom, available revenue sources, and you put special purpose wastewater fund, so what do you
Yes.
mean by that?
So, what I meant by that was we adopted the special purpose wastewater stabilization fund that was being funded from, I think it was half of the short-term rental tax. With this, that was in reference to that fund supporting the debt from the 47 million. So that debt, with the phase 2 debt, it's about $800,000 a year. That's all falling directly on the tax levy. With this project, with that fund set up, we should be able to defray some of those
Okay.
principal and interest costs
I
from
thought
the
we
tax
did that.
levy and pay a portion of it, depending on
Yeah.
how well it's funded.
No, I forgot we did that. That's good.
Yeah,
That's a good
I almost
one.
did too.
Huh?
I almost did too, but.
Yeah. Okay.
In this one, I think we're gonna be looking at a lot more principal forgiveness.
Right.
We have almost a guarantee of the 25% from Cape and Islands Trust. We have 6.6 from the Disadvantaged Communities Program. They're talking about adding another, I wanna say it was 7.5%. They're supplementing the 6.6 with the infrastructure bill money. So assuming all that goes in, that 47 may look more like 32 after everything's said and done.
But that's before infrastructure, possible, no?
After infrastructure. The 32 would be after all the forgiveness is applied.
Including money from the infrastructure bill.
The only portion I didn't include is the additional supplement that I just learned about. I think it's in the 7.5% on top of the 6.6.
Yeah,
So that could reduce a little bit further.
right, okay.
Next, we have Route 28 sewer main installation. Similar situation with this one with respect to the flowable fill, controlled density fill. Couple $1 million in this project is controlled density fill, so we should be able to save a decent portion of that. Again, just for rough numbers with principal forgiveness, that number could go down almost in half. Next, for FY25, had a placeholder for Phase 4 design. Phase 4 obviously is still to be determined and will be laid out in CWMP, but to have a placeholder on the books, I think is appropriate. And one item that is not presently on a capital plan but does need consideration that I just can't wrap my head around yet is Great Sand Lakes. So that we have the ARPA money to complete the design, and then how we want to integrate that into the construction sequence hasn't been discussed yet. Whether that's, I mean, we're going to obviously look at that as part of the CWMP revisions and incorporating that in. There could be a decent opportunity, in my opinion, between when we complete Phase 3 and the time that it's going to take, if we're fortunate to partner with Dennis, that it's going to take them to design and construct their wastewater treatment plant. So absent any treatment plant within our, orders, we can't sewer anything else other than Great Sand Lakes until either Chatham agreed to take more from other parts of Harwich, or Dennis builds a plant and we can partner with them. So there's going to be a gap here, probably 5 years or so. So after Phase 3 could be the opportune moment to do Great Sand Lakes while Dennis is building their plant, so that once Dennis's plant is built, we can prioritize West Harwich and the 20-year timeline that we're now going to be set up.
And Great Sands would go to Chatham?
Yeah. I have an email into Bob to touch base with him about what, if anything, needs to be done on the Chatham side to enable that to happen. There is language in the IMA, so I don't know if it's a simple vote of the IMA working group or if they need to take it anywhere in town. So that's what I'm thinking right now.
All right.
That's a lot of thinking.
Sure is.
So going forward, let's keep the water restrictions and enforcement on the agenda. And I'd like to revisit the capital projects again.
On that, one other thing that when Sandy and I were working together yesterday, we have a 30-year master plan that was developed in 2012 that we've certainly veered away from due to higher priority projects coming up, emergencies, things of that nature. But to not lose sight of, everything that was in there, we're now 12 years out from when that, or 10 years out from when that document was created originally. It may be something worth considering going back into and redoing our 30-year capital plan to bring it up in sync with new priorities. I mean, that was adopted in 2012. I don't know if Alan was here at that time, but it's a new board, new superintendent, new department, pretty much.
Yeah, I
so
was there.
revisit. Yeah, the projects that we've skipped over and kind of restructure our next 30-year outlook would be a worthwhile effort.
Noreen?
You were talking about things to keep on the agenda. Such a dry topic, but I feel like we need to start talking about the bylaws, because it will drag on all year, so whether, it doesn't have to be next meeting, but
Right.
maybe the one after that, we start and have it every month. Just start with a printout of the bylaws themselves and just give that to us in advance and just start. It's about 3 pages, but 3 pages of legalese is like 3,000 pages to me, That could be on before it gets too far away. And when I say bylaws, I also mean, the charter, possible water restriction, the whole mess that we talked about all at once.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you have anything for the superintendent's report?
Real quick, just wanted to let you know that I intend on attending the Real Estate and Open Space Committee meeting October 21st at 8:30 a.m. I caught up with Elaine and just, having just completed our recent land acquisition, wanted to discuss what options there may be to pursue and start the cycle for another. Also, Continental and Witta Drive, the sewer in there is done. The base coat of asphalt is in, and they're hoping to do the final top coat of pavement next week.
Oh,
So they're
nice.
still waiting on schedule, weather could potentially impact that. But, and one other thing, I've been talking to Steve about fall flushing, and I'm thinking that it may be good for us to consider skipping fall flushing, given that we are in the middle of enforcing water restrictions and fining people for irrigation, that although it's an acceptable and recommended use of the water by DEP, that may not go over so well
Yes, that's
publicly.
not the right time right now.
And, as we get through winter, I think we'll definitely need to do it in the spring regardless, just before the big summer push, but,
That makes sense. I mean, we've had pretty good flow now for several months.
Yeah.
Things have been on the move.
we were getting slack when it was a voluntary restriction and we were wrapping up flushing, so I can't imagine the heat would take.
Right.
And I've seen other systems posting on Mass Waterworks that they're considering it as well, so we're not alone in it.
Right. That's good.
Yep.
That's all I got right now.
Commissioners report, Mr. Thompson.
No, I'm good.
Ms. Donahue.
Nope.
Mr. Goff.
All set?
All right, next meeting will be the week of the 26th or the 30th. You want to stick with Wednesdays? Wednesday working? Same time?
We only went to Wednesday because I had an appointment, so, I mean, I'm fine either day, I just don't, it was a one-time appointment,
Okay.
so. In case Thursdays were better, but I'm
Is
fine.
Thursday good with everybody?
So Thursday the 29th,
Yeah.
I have a training I just signed up for this morning.
Oh, yeah, well, Wednesday the 28th.
Wednesday the 28th. Looks good.
Alan?
Yep.
John?
All set?
All right, 28th. 11:30.
Yeah.
Is that good for you?
Yes, fine. Yep, thank you. All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Wow.
That must have been a record.
Last one was like this, too.
Yeah.
That's because Dana was here.